following, and this is particularly important following the admission of the African Union as a member of the G20. It is a great opportunity for us to place the needs of our continent and the rest of the global South more firmly on the international development agenda. Our G20 presidency is a valuable opportunity for South Africa to advance efforts towards greater global economic growth and sustainable development. Africa remains at the center of our foreign policy. We continue to work to strengthen the African Union, to support the achievement of peace, development, and economic integration on our continent. We know that our future prosperity is intricately linked and bound to the prosperity of the African continent. For South Africa to thrive, we must ensure that Africa does indeed thrive as well. And we must silence the guns on our continent. Now, since the advent of democracy, we've been instrumental in restoring stability in countries such as Côte d'Ivoire, Burundi, South Sudan, Lesotho. More recently, we've been part of the SADC peacekeeping mission in Mozambique that has brought relative calm and stability to the Cabo Delgado province. The presence of South African peacekeepers in the eastern DRC is testament to our continued commitment to peaceful resolution of one of the world's most intractable conflicts that has gone on for years and that has cost millions of lives and displaced many people. Now, we call on all parties to embrace the current diplomatic efforts to find a peaceful resolution, including honoring the Luanda process. We will attend the joint summit between SADC and the East African Community scheduled to take place in Tanzania this weekend, where we will reiterate our call for a ceasefire and a resumption of talks to find a just and enduring solution, and we will make sure that our boys, our soldiers do come back home. We have always believed that the freedom that we won and the international solidarity from which we benefited does impose a duty on us to support the struggles of those who continue to experience colonialism and oppression. South Africa continues to stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine, who have endured decades of illegal occupation and are now experiencing indescribable suffering. And South Africa has acted in accordance with its obligations under the Genocide Convention by instituting proceedings against Israel in the International Court of Justice. We are fully committed to the articles of the United Nations, including the principles that all members should settle their international disputes by peaceful means. We support the principle of respect of the territorial integrity and sovereignty of all states and peoples. We continue to participate in the different peace processes seeking to bring about a just and lasting peace in Ukraine. South African delegations have been instrumental in developing a framework for negotiations towards a just peace in Ukraine based on the UN Charter and international law. Our country continues to advance its agenda of cooperation and multilateralism through its membership of the United Nations, the African Union, the Non-Aligned Movement, BRICS, and a number of other international bodies. As humanity confronts unprecedented challenges, we are determined that a reformed and representative United Nations must be at the center of global affairs, and we will continue to push for progress on the reform of the UN Security Council to be a more inclusive, more effective body that is able to ensure peace and security. And we will work to ensure that the needs of the people of the world are advanced. And the work that we do and what we stand for does need to be explained to many key players, especially to our trading partners and the many countries and leaders that we interact with on the global stage, and with a view of explaining the positions that we have taken, and in particular, the objectives that we wish to achieve during our presidency of the G20. I have decided to send a delegation of government and other leaders to various capitals on our continent across the world. This delegation will interact with various key players on a variety of matters that affect South Africa's interests. I will direct that they leave as soon as possible to interact with various key players on our continent and in the world, so that our presidency of the G20 objectives can be well explained. All these things that we speak of are possible. As South Africans, we know the power of cooperation, of what is possible when people of different backgrounds, different races, cultures, languages, and ethnic groups and religions come together behind a shared objective. The formation of the Government of National Unity provides us with an opportunity to show once again that we can achieve what we can achieve by working together. And I call on all South Africans, united in our diversity, to come together in the national dialogue that we are going to have to define a vision for our country for the next 30 years. The national dialogue must be a place where everyone has a voice. It must be a place to find solutions that make a real difference in people's lives. The dialogue must reaffirm that each and every one of us has a role to play in building the nation that we want. We must therefore be builders and not people who seek to destroy the future of South Africans. While we may differ on many issues, we agree on one thing, that we need to build a better South Africa and improve the well-being of our people, and that we should do so not by sitting on the sidelines and shouting. We should be in the scrum, working to develop the lives of our people. And so, as we enter the new era, in the world and in our own country, let us speak of empathy, of compassion that we have for one another. Let us speak of the pride that we have of our country and all that we have achieved. Let us speak of the determination that won us freedom and drives us forward now to a better future. With this determination, we will work together to make this an era of growth, of progress and transformation. We will work together to build the nation that we want. And we will only be able to do it by working together and not by shouting together. And we will only be able to do it by ensuring that we as the leaders ensure that those who will come after us, our children and our great children, inherit a country that we have helped to build, not to destroy. Thank you very much.
Order, honorable members, order. Order, honorable members. I thank the Honorable, the President. Order, honorable members. After I have adjourned the joint sitting, members should rise and remain at their places until the procession has left the chamber. The guests in the gallery should remain seated until the judiciary has left, and the ushers will indicate when the doors are open. The procession led by the usher of the Black Rod and the acting Sergeant-at-Arms will leave the chamber in the following order: the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, the President, the Deputy.
Welcome back here to Parliament. So the President has spoken a marathon speech over an hour, 1 hour and 25 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. One of the longest State of the Nation speeches. And I'm delighted now to be joined by our analyst, Monet. Monet, tell me more about the speech. What did you make?
I think there's a lot of promises that have been made, some that have been made before, some great updates. I think he really started the speech off well with a bang, really addressing the current controversy that's happening with the Trump and the states. And I think it was good for him to get that out of the way, address it, and move on to really pressing issues that are facing the countries and things that we are actually looking forward to hearing about and the updates. So I'm interested to hear what the delegates think and how they think he's going to take this forward for us.
We know it was one of the marathon speeches we've heard. We don't hear the President speaking for so long, but I think he needed to bring out all of this, especially in the context of the government of national unity.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting part, right? So this is the first parliament where we're having the government of national unity together, basically presenting for more than one party with different ideologies and policies. So it's very interesting to see how that's going to come together and how they're going to fulfill these promises that have been there before, and see if maybe opposing views will allow for some change to happen. I mean, we've heard everything from youth employment being promised and, access to higher education, access to SASA and social grants being made more, but how? I think that's the main question. How are we doing this? And so that's our promise. What are we doing?
You mentioned this. It's very easy to say all of this. Now the political parties. When you look around us, we see it's everybody around trying to give, to get interviews, to get comment from the different positions, behind the media waiting for Julius Malema to come through, waiting for the ANC spokesperson to come through. But while we're waiting for them, let's see how important having the State of the Nation, and we're going to see, as you can see behind us here, we can see the presidential motorcade making their way, just to see the president leaving.
I think it's actually such an honorable moment to be here. As much as we have our doubts and we have our questions, it's an honorable situation to be here and just to actually hear the president deliver.
And I think we do have the EFF leader. I'm going to try and make my way there and see if we can get... So we're going to hear from the EFF leader, Julius Malema. Sorry.
You can come in, guys. You can come in.
As we welcome you here, the EFF leader, Julius Malema, is joining us and he will be making a statement to respond to what the president has presented as the country's plan for the year. Are you satisfied with the plan that is brought forward?
Well, there is no plan. The president doesn't account for what he said before this State of the Nation address. The nation of address was Tinswalo, the other one was Tumamina. Tapes and all manner of things. Monies have been committed before. I mean, we're still talking about water today. We spoke about water during the Guyana project. When he became the president, one of the things we said to him was the completion of the Guyana project. Till today, the project has not been implemented. Very good at putting figures, throwing numbers. Even during COVID, he was every speech putting numbers. But we have never seen any legacy of those billions that he spoke about even during COVID.
If you look at the pronouncements around the finalization of the industrial policy, making the mining rights application transparent, something that the EFF has been actually, it's close to your heart, if I can put it that way. Are you happy that perhaps maybe he's starting to navigate himself towards your thinking as a party?
He needs to give people permits so that they can mine in this country and stop this bureaucracy and corruption that is in the mineral department. We must make sure our people have got the rights, permission to mine. And we must formalize the so-called illegal miners, especially where there is potential and the land is safe. We want beneficiation to happen here in South Africa. He speaks about beneficiation all the time, he gets bored. But we have not done anything about beneficiation. We will never create jobs if we don't beneficiate in South Africa and if we don't industrialize. As things are now, we're deindustrializing the South African economy and at the same time talk about creation of jobs. So you can be guaranteed there is no concrete plan on creating jobs in South Africa. Concrete plan. He says we must come and work closer to where we work. But what has he done about Alexander, which he has committed to help? He's just talking. He's not going to bring anyone closer to where they work, because the people who own the land closer to where we work is white people. He's not going to expropriate that land. He's just baffling about it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just EFF leader Julius Malema just speaking more about his views on the State of the Nation address. I think really important thoughts coming across by Julius Malema. So we heard the Commander-in-Chief of the EFF speaking about the empty promises made that he claims were made by the president. What do you make about his comments?
I mean, I think it relates to what I was saying earlier on, is that we've been promised a lot of things many times. It's a question of what is the action, and I think, is there someone to hold the party accountable when there is no delivery? Again, the 1 million houses that were promised in Alexandra, there are many things that have been promised and not delivered. So what makes this different? You know, what makes a speech significantly different?
We see the MK party making their way here now. Let's see what the MK party have to say. I'm going to go into here. We're waiting for the MK party to comment on. So you can see in song and dance here at the City Hall. What do you make of the MK party here?
It's very interesting. I want to hear what their take on this is. I thought President Jacob Zuma would be here tonight. So it's going to be interesting to hear their thoughts and how they stand with what the GNU has delivered for us tonight.
And I think you can see very jovial atmosphere, but it will be very interesting to see what they say about the State of the Nation.
Yeah, it would be very interesting to hear because, they have very similar views to the EFF, but we know the two parties have had quite a few squabbles, so it's going to be interesting to hear, do they take the same stance as Honorable Malema has taken and saying that it's been lip service, or do they, what are they going to say?
I think it's going to be very important. We're just waiting for the spokesperson to make his or her way to us now to come and speak to us. Excuse me, sorry, this is live TV. We are at Parliament, so we do have people walking in front of us. Let's excuse this, but yeah, there's a lot of journalists around here. And as you can see behind me here, the EFF are making, the MK party are making their views known. SG, can we have a quick word with you? SG. My name is Mohammed from INX Prime. Thank you for joining us. What do you make of the President's State of the Nation address?
The State of the Nation address is very important because it is about where we are, and the President have unveiled what we call a medium-term development plan, MTDBP, which is very much important in relation to health, in relation to the economy, but also in relation to our foreign relations and foreign policy, what inform our country. And it's a very practicable statement that he put before the nation.
Speaking about foreign policy, we do know the US President has made some utterances on South Africa. What is the ANC's view on this?
Well, we are very much encouraged by the bold steps our government have taken, that the United States must not rely on falsehood to attack South Africa. They need to play their cards open and then not allow people who peddle lies to inform their own attack and attitude towards our country. And our government have stepped up through the president to explain and to engage everybody. And that's what a responsible government does. But the president have been also able to explain that 17% of the US aid that has been rolled out is only 17%, and that our people in relation to health relied on their own fiscals in terms of pursuing our overall approach with regard to the fight against HIV and AIDS.
What about NHI? Has there been a deal reached between the government and the DA on how to change how NHI was originally?
I think the president has explained that what is going to happen with NHI and that it will be implemented in phases. The DA raised issues, as far as I'm concerned, with regard to the matter of what is this medical aid, and that matter has been settled. It will be settled and discussed through the advisory council, and that is what is important in this matter.
So no deal has been reached. The advisory council.
There can never be a deal that reverses NHI. The advisory council will deal with the matters that they raise in terms of implementation, particularly the question of the medical aid.
My final question to you, any message for AfriForum, who've been very peddling these stories, and we've seen them asking for sanctions to be put against ANC ministers especially? What's your message to South Africans who are peddling these lies?
We shouldn't, like the president said, embrace disruptors. We are building a country not for now but for the future. So AfriForum are just disruptors, and who are basically terrorizing, our economy and the country that they belong to, on the basis of peddling falsehood. And the majority of South Africans have managed to isolate the AfriForum for what they are and what they stand for. And then we are united in our diversity and moving forward, and that is what is important for us.
Thank you so much, SG.
Thank you very much.
That was the Secretary General of the ANC, Mr. Fikile Mbalula, speaking to us about the State of the Nation address, and also making really bold claims and bold utterances on AfriForum as people threatening and bullying South Africans and our economy. I'm going to bring in our analysts. I'm going to bring our analysts back in here. We heard Mr. Mbalula speaking to us now. Very strong words, especially when it comes to AfriForum.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing stance that they've decided to take, and being very firm on, the policies that they stand on, and also being very firm about the policies of the ANC. So I think I was very impressed by what they're saying, but it's a question of will they deliver.
I think it's very important, and I see the IFP, the IFP minister, Deputy Minister of Transport is here, and we also see the leader of Rise Mzansi is there, but we're going to try and get as many interviews as possible with the people here. I'm just waiting for our team to bring the guests to us, but we can see the MK party really enjoying themselves, taking it into a very jovial atmosphere. And yeah, it was all part of what the EFF used to do.
Yeah.
Have the shoes moved to the other foot now?
I think they have. I think, when I first heard the singing, I thought it was actually the EFF until I saw the EFF standing around, and surprise, it's the MK. So I think the jovialness has moved to the other party. But it's also, it's tough for the EFF currently. They've had a lot of changes happening in their party. So I think they're still finding their feet and finding their way around in terms of, with the changes and the restructuring and what that looks like for them. So it's an interesting time.
Speaking about the EFF, did you notice a very much more subdued Julius Malema compared to previously? The man used to be full of gusto and valor. He seemed to be a bit short of confidence, maybe not having his trusted lieutenants next to him.
I think a bit. I think that comes with the change that has happened within the party. But the interesting part is that he still stands firm on what he's been saying throughout the years against the ANC and the GNU. But definitely less strong presence was seen today.
I see that there are a lot of people walking around. We're waiting for the next few interviews to be coming to join us. But I think it's important that we have these conversations here, listening to what the political parties say, because it's very important to see what the feelings are on the ground from political parties based on what President Cyril Ramaphosa has been saying.
Yeah, I think it's very important for us to, not only us, but viewers as well at home, to understand what's really happening on the ground and what everyone feels about the next year and what they have assigned on their tables, and their sense of confidence in delivering what is assigned out to them.
I think that's the very, very important point that we're making there, that what the other political parties are thinking right now at this moment when it comes to the state of the nation and where we're going in the next few months, because as Mr. Mbalula also mentioned, the President has mentioned the midterm plan, and also the President mentioned the national dialogue that's going to be happening soon.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to hear what they're going to be saying next with the debate coming up, and hearing what's going to come out from the debate. From tonight, everyone has heard they have time to go process, and they have time to go put their thoughts together and come contest and put their own thoughts out, not only on live TV now in 2 seconds, but with everything having been processed and properly understood. And then we'll see what the GNU has come to together and not just separately.
Yeah, I think the GNU, it's very, very important to mention the GNU, the Government of National Unity. Excuse me, we just see, we are just live on air, and we have members of the MK party walking right in front of the camera. We're going to try and speak to the President John Shlopi, as well as the national spokesperson Mzanele Mani, who we spoke to earlier on, who made some really interesting claims about the ANC. But let's just see when Mr. Shlopi has some time. We want to have some words with him. He was supposed to have addressed the nation yesterday from the real State of the Nation address. Let's just see what he gets to say in a few minutes' time.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear what he has to say tonight. He did make very interesting claims earlier on, and about things that are now being in the legal process, and hearing what, everything that happened within the IEC. So it's going to be interesting to hear what, with those legal battles that are happening in the background, what's their stance with what's being said today, and how that's going to be contested going forward, should anything come out of the legalities of what's happening.
And they actually did make some very bold claims about the elections being rigged. What I'm also noticing here is it seems like there's not many politicians making their way outside compared to as normal. I know there are some caucus meetings taking place now where the different ministries are talking. So let's see if we can get some other people to come back here. But we're going to try and get Mzanele Mani and John Shlopi to speak to us in a few minutes. But while we wait for them, let's see. Something very interesting was the national dialogue. What's your take on that?
I think it's an important thing that has to take place, because I think there's a lot of questions that we have as a nation, and to hear the parties contest with each other but also speak to us is going to be a very important moment for us to be part of.
So I think it's really important to the viewers out there. We need to know where we're going as a country. I think the country also needs to be taken into confidence by the president, by the government of national unity, because it is fragile at the moment. In my interview with Fikile Mbalula, we asked about the NHI as well. We know it's a very sticking point among the NHI is very sticky with the other coalition partners. So it's going to be very interesting to see where we're going with the NHI.
Yeah, I think with the NHI, with the Bellable, and even with the Expropriation Act, there's a lot of acts where there's been contestations from the different parties against each other of what the implementation is going to look like. So I think this is going to be a very important moment. The dialogue will be very important for us to understand that how do these parties with opposing policies come together to work through these bills that are against each other's policies, because the NHI has been contested by the DA, the NHI has been contested by the VF Plus, so has the Bella Bill, and so has the land without the expropriation bill. So we want, like you said, as viewers, we want confidence to say these are going to be carried through and not just be signed into place. But I mean, for now, the NHI has been signed, but nothing has really happened. So it's going to be important for the national dialogue to happen, for us to understand how it's going to move forward.
So we're on air. The NHI is really important. We know the bill that's very important that's going to be taking place. And once again, apologies. It is a live environment, so people will be walking in front of us at all times. We do apologize to our viewers out there. We're still waiting for John Shlopi and Mzanele Mani to join us. The MK party do seem to have a big contingent of people here on the floors outside Parliament.
Yeah. They're very, like you said earlier on, they're a very jovial party, and they seem to be in high spirits and very confident in themselves as a party and their presence. And like they reiterated earlier, that they feel very confident about the country's confidence in them. So let's see what that looks like in terms of holding our GNU accountable and making sure that they stick to the promises that they've delivered to us today, especially when it comes to delivering services for the poor and delivering services for the underprivileged, and how they're going to manage to hold them accountable for that access to be bridged for everyone.
And they are the official opposition of South Africa. that's a given. They are the official opposition in Parliament. They are the second biggest party after the Government of National Unity. So I think it's very important that they are showing that they are here, and it's very important that their voices are being heard, because a lot of criticism of the party is that they are very silent when it comes to important issues.
Yeah, I think that's been, like you said, I think they've taken the role that the EFF used to have, but with this time, as we saw from the last elections, they got a bit more votes, they got a higher percentage. So it's going to be interesting how they're going to manage to...
Mr. Mani, can we join you? We're going to listen to the party. I see a nice moment between the Fikile Mbalula and Dr. John Shlope, just shaking hands here outside here in Parliament.
Joining me in the middle of what is effectively an MK.
We want that background. Yes.
Military uniformed people around me. Dr. Shlope, what is your reaction to the president's speech?
Well, I came with writing material, because I was hoping to take copious notes, sit down, listen, because remember, MK is an official opposition. Alas, we're hugely disappointed. The speech was hugely disappointing. It was hollow and totally uninspiring. The president, for example, speaks with reference to borrowing billions of rands to develop infrastructure.
Sorry. Excuse me. We've got the mayor of Cape Town joining us now. Sorry, we live on air. Hi, Mr. Windy, how are you? We joined live now on air by the mayor of Cape Town, Mr. Alan Windy. So Windy, what did you make of the speech?
I'm obviously excited by the reference to the greater cooperation between the SAPS and the Metro Police. That's something that we've been working on for years, and that's certainly something that we're going to pursue now with real energy.
As a member of the Democratic Alliance, you're part of the coalition government. Usually when we have these, usually before we have State of the Nation, and we used to always hear the problems with the speech, are we seeing a more united government, a more united South Africa?
I think we are, but obviously I still am concerned about the lack of urgency. There's a real kind of relaxation and nonchalance that you still pick up in the speech, which is very concerning. We've got massive problems, 13 million unemployed people, and the president is saying the right things, but we need real urgency now.
How can the DA work with the president, with their coalition partners, to get this urgency back?
In the portfolios that we control, we're just going to push extremely hard and keep reminding the government that all of our things are really urgent.
When you say really urgent, in the portfolios, we do know that the DA are running some very important portfolios. We do know in the last few days the appropriation bill was expropriation bill was out there. We've seen Donald Trump coming out attacking South Africa. What's your take on those attacks by the US president?
Well, obviously he's wrong. His comment is incorrect. There is no land seizure taking place in South Africa. That is false and damaging and dangerous. It is also at the same time true that the ANC has done extremely badly over the last few years in alienating all of our major partners, investors, trading nations around the world. And we've got work to do to repair that damage. You cannot talk about expropriation without compensation, because people around the world don't follow the nuance. They just hear that you're going to take away their investment, their property. That is a very damaging message for our prospects of growing the economy. So two things can be true at the same time. It is a false statement, a dangerous statement, an incorrect statement, and we have done very badly at alienating our friends and investors.
Final question to you is, we do know AfriForum have been very involved in this peddling of these rumors towards the Americans. This is one that put out a few tweets. Your message to people in AfriForum, because we do know the damage it's causing to our economy, to the country, would you ask them to stop this and also come out with the facts instead of putting out really difficult questions and difficult statements out there?
No, I wouldn't criticize them at all, because what they have said is factually true. The Act gives the power of confiscation to the government. No government should have that power. So that is not a lie. What is incorrect is that any confiscation is happening. That's what Donald Trump tweeted. So you don't blame AfriForum for raising the alarm. You lay the fault at the feet of the ANC for introducing such a damaging and dangerous bill.
Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for your time. Highly appreciated. We are going now to Sidi Madia from Sidi Madia will be in, we've got, hi.
Hi, Nobuntu.
No, hi, Nobuntu. From Bill 1 South Africa, so nice of you to join us. What did you make of the speech today?
Look, the State of the Nation should first of all show you and illustrate what the State of the Nation is. And it really felt like the President is quite removed from the reality of South Africans, and therefore there wasn't a urgency that we had and that we could sense from the President. So that was the first thing. It also is an opportunity to be accountable. So we hear new rehashed plans, whereas we don't have accountability for the previous. So for example, the President spoke a lot about SMME development, he spoke a lot about women and the development of women, but we have a promise that he's given before of 40% of procurement towards women businesses, but that hasn't been, as an example, that hasn't been delivered. And so that becomes the issue in saying, how do we actually ensure that we have delivery on the things that the President is saying, and that actually you must get a sense that the President understands the reality of South Africa.
Knowing that the President has spoken for almost more than an hour, we've seen the official opposition also making that comment that a lot was said, but a lot was not said as well. You've echoed very similar sentiments. How do you hold the President and the Presidency and the Government of National Unity accountable?
So that's our job. We have to continue to hold them accountable. The reality is that close to 70% of young people are unemployed. So when the President speaks about youth unemployment, there's that reality. And whoever's watching at home is sitting with that reality. He speaks about economic growth and a goal of 3%. But the reality is that in order to create employment and to grow the economy, we need 5 to 6%. And so we have to continue in Parliament to hold the President accountable. We have to be a constructive opposition, as Bill Dwane said. That's our commitment. We have to make sure that we're sitting in those portfolio committees, holding the ministers accountable and ensuring that they deliver, particularly on all that has been promised today, but also even what has been previously promised. We are still looking to have delivery on those things.
We do know you're one of the opposition parties. Would you be willing to form part of a coalition of opposition parties with, for example, the MK party, with the EFF?
So we're certainly not speaking to the MK or the EFF, but we are speaking to other political parties about working together and collaborating, certainly when it comes to Parliament, to form a centrist caucus where we are able to collaborate together and strengthen the voice of the centrist parties in Parliament. So we absolutely are in those conversations, and that's something that we're absolutely willing to do.
And thank you so much for your time, and all the best. We hope you a safe journey back.
No, thank you very much. Thank you.
That was the deputy leader of the Build One South Africa party. I think really interesting, very important, informative points made. And I think that's the sentiments that's being shared here on the floor here, that not much, it's just a lot of talk, not much action.
Yeah, I think she brought up very important points and very important examples of, again, people sitting at home. There's 70% of black people who are unemployed, like you said. So what's the plan? It's going to be very interesting to hear after the budget speech how much is going to be allocated to the different points that he's spoken about, and with that money allocated, what are the plans that they have to ensure that are the opposing parties actually going to be able to you are accountable for what they deliver on and fail to deliver on. So what does that also look like? What does accountability look like? But I think we'll hear that in the national dialogue. We'll hear more of that in the national dialogue to hear how they plan to bring accountability in, and how they plan to separate the budget in a way that we can make sure that youth unemployment is alleviated. We can make sure that people have access to social facilities, and just bridging the gap of inequality that the country is deeply facing currently.
And we can feel the Cape Doctor coming to join us now with the wind. We had it's becoming a windy city today, but yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of people leaving. Mr. Manye, could you join us for a few minutes on INX Prime?
Okay.
What did you make of the president's speech?
It was hollow. It has absolutely nothing for anyone. The man did not even begin by accounting for his previous SONA. He just came in here and then started different projects that it doesn't even say how those projects will be funded. It was just let me say something to please you, people. Let me say something that is going to give you hope, and then it does not substantiate how all of that's going to happen. So we came here with the notebooks to take notes, but we came back empty-handed. But didn't take any notes because the man said nothing.
So you mentioned that he said nothing. What difference would it make had the MK party been in Parliament? What different things would you have said?
A state of the nation is supposed to be in a state of the nation, must speak the truth, give people numbers that are real in terms of the state of the economy instead of the state of things in the country. And then go from there to say, in order to fix this, this is what we're going to do. That's what needed to happen. The MK party in government, that's what we do. We be honest with the nation and tell the nation that even if the picture is bad, paint the picture the way it is and have a clear program of action and clear timelines of how the program is going to be fixed.
Mani, thank you so much for your time. All the best. Very interesting by Mzanele Mani, the national spokesperson of the MK party. And I think the opposition parties not in the GNU have all echoed the same sentiments. I'm going to try and see if we can get Mr. Chester Missing to join us. I see he's somewhere behind us. Come and join us for Chester, how are you? I'm very well. Okay, so the I think the puppet trying to make
While your microphone like politicians talk.
What does politicians smell like?
They smell like a puppet.
The tone was
like a puppet.
But it's a journalist. I'm excited there's going to be growing. I got my own of politicians. You smell like
different stance as compared to what the DA has taken. I mean, just for example, when it comes to Palestine and everything that has been happening, you know, so it was going to be very interesting to hear not why the jump, but does he truly stand with what he says, and what does he say about the GNU? What does he say with where we are currently in the country, and what his solutions for Bosa are?
I think it's very important because I know he's going to be speaking about education because he's very into education. It's going to be very important to see what Mr. Maimani does tell you in the next few minutes. I see he's speaking to EWN at the moment. He will be joining us in a few seconds' time now. But I think the politicians we've spoken to this evening, I think Chester Missing just added some humor to the night. And that's just, I think we've had a very serious night with serious thoughts, and I think it's nice to end it off with some humor.
Yeah, I think it's important for the country to just have a bit of a giggle and a bit of a laugh. But I think there were really important things that were pointed out tonight, and that the president really did fail the country in not mentioning painting the true picture, what the state has looked like and what the way forward is, because I feel that every year we come and we say this is the State of the Nation address, but what does accountability look like if we don't have the numbers to address and to say you've delivered, you have under-delivered, and what that looks like. So I think a few brilliant points have been made, and it feels that everybody shares similar sentiments in the sense that they feel like it's all speech, and we just want to see what's next. But it feels that everybody feels very much the same. So the bit of humor is important for us to release.
I think so too, but I think it's very important that we do get this, because when you walk around and you listen to what's been said by the different political parties, it's polar opposites. The ANC and its coalition parties seem to be very, very excited about what's been said, while the opposition parties are really, really upset. And borderline rude towards what the president has mentioned in the course of tonight's speech.
Yeah, I think those are the sentiments that have been shared. But I think, you know, if you're in parliament and you're in power, you have to be excited. You have to show us that you're going to carry the plans through. I think I'd be a bit scared if they were not excited. But you know, let's hear what the opposition parties. Let's see if what they have to say is true and will be, you know, or they will be proven wrong.
And I see Mr. Maimani is joining you. Yeah. You
Joining us is Musi Maimani, of the head of BOSA. Hi, Musi, how are you doing?
Good, thanks, and you?
I'm good, thank you. What do you feel about tonight and what the president has echoed?
Yeah, I thought tonight was more promises. Promises you cannot disagree with.
Okay.
Of course we want rail. Of course we want growth. Of course we want a capable public service. The question that I was left with tonight is how and what does it all mean? So here's some key questions that I would want to put to the president. If you want a public service, a capable public service, make sure our kids pass at 50%, not at 30%, because then you can have graduates that come into the education system. If you want to fund infrastructure, make sure you don't have wasteful and fruitless expenditure, because you need the financing to build for infrastructure. If you actually want a local government that works, deal with corruption, because local government doesn't just collapse because of funding models and actually the white paper. It collapses because there's so many people who are corrupt, who are stealing at local government. Fix those things, we begin to see a reform. And I thought tonight, let's move from promises to a tangible plan we can hold the president to account on.
So as BOSA, what is your plan, and how do you, with what you've spoken about now, how are you going to be contributing towards that to make sure, especially when it comes to education, right? Having come from being part of the DA, where there's been an underspending on education in the Western Cape, and you know, seeing schools shut down, teachers quit, people not being paid, and now holding a completely different view, how do you plan to, you know, deliver on that promise or hold the government accountable?
Yeah, when we tabled our bold plan for what our state of the nation needs to be, we spoke extensively about a 5% growth. And the starting point behind that is about focused on infrastructure, particularly transport infrastructure. You need to make a decision to say, like we built the Gautrain, how do we make sure certain functions about diversification of rail lines, including more other service providers so that people can actually use passenger rail. But also, when you build, rather than talking about housing and title deeds, let's be bold and build new cities. Rather than talking about education in the way that the president congratulates and says the class has passed well, make a decision today to say no one will pass at 30%, they'll pass at 50%. And then if you're going to make also that commitment, increase the budget that goes into education, because in truth, education is under pressure. There are too many unemployed educators, infrastructure is collapsing, and more than anything, the annual national assessments for teachers have been dropped. So teachers are working, yet they are not being assessed. Let's deal with that and take a fight to the unions and reform our education.
Thank you so much, Musi. It's a pleasure having you. Thank you so much. And that was Musi Maimani, the leader of BOSA. And coming through is my colleague again.
Yeah, I think really interesting thoughts again by Mr. Maimani, speaking about very important topics again.
But I think he also failed to actually answer my question, and I think I saw a bit of diversion with him. He gave out pointers, but I think he missed the beat with really answering, as BOSA, what is their stance on what I've posed, especially having come from a party where they really do underspend when it comes to education. So, but it will be interesting to see. He has amazing ideas, but it's a question of will he be able to implement them themselves as BOSA, and what work they're doing towards that.
I think it's about implementation. We speak about implementation all the time, and I don't know how many times we've been speaking about this, and I think we're joined now by... Yes, good evening, how are you?
I'm all right, how are you?
Good, thanks. What did you make of the speech this evening?
The speech of the president of the country, like the other 9 sonas that is presented a view to make it appear as if all is well in our country. However, if you look at the lived realities, South Africans are not happy. South Africans are suffering from poverty, from unemployment, from crime, but he's not in the past 9 years or 9 SONAs actually delivered a plan that will give confidence to the people to say South Africa will be better under his leadership. However, we want to commend him for being firm on the issue of being bullied by the likes of Donald Trump, who want us as South Africa to make to undermine our national interests and policies that will seek to appease them as a country. However, we want to actually express our disappointment to the president to say he did not address the root cause of the problem of that diplomatic split with America, because the root cause of the problem, it is AfriForum. It is AfriForum that goes across countries, misleading people, creating propaganda. Then the other countries respond negatively to our country because of the rubbish that is being spewed by AfriForum. So we can't allow a case whereby he's going to address, yes, the Americans, but he's not going to address the culprits inside South Africa.
I think when one listens to other members of the coalition, the Government of National Unity, most of them have addressed what AfriForum have said. Surprisingly, some parties have actually agreed with what AfriForum have said. How do you make out when different parties within the coalition have such different polar opposites?
It's because that's the nature of this coalition. It is a coalition that is not based on anything rather than political expediency and compromise. Because if it was about really advancing the country, you can't advance the country whilst working with parties that are on the opposite ends of the policy and ideological spectrum. Because look at, for example, the issue of the land expropriation. It was the DA first that said that a Land Expropriation Act is tantamount to land grabs. It is the DA again that was fighting the Bella Act, DA that is fighting the NHI. So whereas it is one would expect that it is programs that will be advanced by the government. So in that regard, more is going to happen under such an arrangement that is about compromise rather than advancing the interests of the people.
If you were to give the State of the Nation address, what's one important point that you, if you were the president, would have given to the country this evening?
Definitely it would be mass industrialization. Because when there's mass industrialization, we are going to be a country that produces what we consume. In that case, we are going to get rid of poverty. We are going to create jobs, because currently we've got a consumerism-driven economy whereby we are consuming everything. And by doing so, we're actually creating jobs for the rest of the world instead of creating jobs for South Africa. And currently, with the very, very high unemployment rates, poverty rates, the priority in our view should be job creation, should be eradicating poverty, because when people are not in poverty, when people are able to work, you can deal with the other problems, because some of the other problems are as a result of the main problems of poverty and unemployment.
So thank you so much for your time. Very, very interesting points. I think really interesting points made there. Once again, I think it's very important that we do listen to members of the opposition speaking about this. And we're joined by the President of the UAT. Sir, good evening, how are you?
No, we are well, thank you so much.
What did you make of President Ramaphosa's speech this evening?
No, the President obviously articulated himself very well, tried to balance between left and right. But if you listen to the statement, it doesn't have time frames and how it's going to implement the issues. As UAT, we came here also wanted to hear about the issue of Expropriation Act. Now that is into law, we wanted to understand. We wanted him to talk into the implementation, the timeframes and the targets, the issue of DRC. You cannot say that our children or our soldiers are coming back. You need to indicate how far are you with the process. When are we expecting them to be back, so that you put their families and their communities into ease. And also, I believe that the minister previously has indicated that South Africa lack the budget and also the ammunition, which actually it is exposing the vulnerability of the country. He was supposed to indicate that if they're going to source the funding so that we know that the country is secured. I also have a feeling that he did not emphasize on the issues of international relations, the issue of America threatening South Africa. He was supposed to be firm on it, stand firm on it, that if they take their funding, then we're keeping our resources. He was supposed to be firm on the issues of Palestine, not to brush it off and say we are supporting them. So that is our take.
I think you mentioned a lot of topics here, especially when it comes to what the president said this evening. But something very important that you did mention was you feel that the president wasn't firm, didn't give timelines. But many others would argue that the president would probably need to discuss with the ministers, with his coalition partners, and once a budget comes out in a few weeks' time, we'll see a bit more when it comes to implementation.
This is the state of the nation address. By the time you present to us, we have consulted with all the departments. We don't expect the president to be an expert of energy, the expert of water, the expert of policy. No. When you come to SONA, you come well prepared and already know that what is your plan of action. We wanted him to talk to the plan of action, and it did not happen today. Another story, another illusion, very nice to hear, but we know it's all lies.
Thank you so much for your time. I think it's really, really important points. Thank you, sir.
Kanimambo.
That was the leader of the UAT speaking to us. Ma'am Nomvula, could we have a few words with you on INX Prime? Okay, and then we're just waiting for Ma'am Nomvula Mokonyane to join us here on air. Yeah, she's just busy saying bye to her previous interviewer. We're trying to see if we can get her here for a few minutes here. I think it's going to be important to see what an ANC member actually has got to say. We've spoken to a lot of opposition parties, and now I'm delighted now to be joined by Moni. We spoke to the leader of the UAT again now, and I think it's important once again that what we've seen this evening is polar opposites of what each political party feels about this evening.
Like you said earlier on, everyone part of the GNU is sort of very confident and ready to deliver what has been promised tonight, and opposition parties feeling very, very opposed to what the president is saying and feeling very much that there's no delivery.
I think we are ready for Ma'am Nomvula Mokonyane. Yeah, so I'm going to see if we can get her on air for a few minutes. She's still busy there. I think she's busy looking at her dress code for today and having a chat with Sidi Madia. Ma'am Nomvula. Good evening, ma'am. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. And how are you?
The last time we met was at the IEC's Operations Center during the elections. How's it been in the last 8 months?
Well, things have been going quite well. We made the necessary interventions. We now have a government of national unity. We now have a common program of action of the government of national unity led by the president of the ANC. We now agree that for the country to move on, we need to, all of us collectively, invest on economic growth and creation of jobs, both the private sector and the public sector. We also have agreed through the statement by the president that there is a need to fight and prevent the crimes against women and children, something that is quite important. And my other exciting moment was when the president spoke around international issues, our solidarity stance with Palestine, our commitment to silencing the guns in the continent and in the region, and most importantly, the issues about us guarding against right-wing tendencies that seek to now change the geopolitics.
Do you feel South Africa's policy on Palestine, and especially taking Israel to the ICJ, has resulted in Donald Trump attacking the country?
We don't know. I wouldn't want to speculate. I'm not his advisor. I'm not in his circle. I'm not a member of the Republican Party. Whatever that has informed him, I don't know. What I know is our stance.
The ANC have made its stance very clear. Speaking to a lot of opposition parties, a lot of criticism has been met out to the president for his speech, saying that a lot of talk, he hasn't really followed up on previous sonas. What's your comment on that?
That's typical of opposition. Oppositions will never be relevant if they don't oppose. Can't help it.
So do you think we're going to see more meat of what was said by the president in the next few weeks?
There's meat already. The speech had lots of content. It was referring to projects. It was referring to activities. It was even referring to costs of what it will take to grow the economy and create jobs.
Ma'am Nomvula Mokonyane, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That was...
Bye.
you want to say a few words before?
Yeah, so I think that as we've been speaking throughout the evening, depending on who we're speaking to, if we're speaking to the ANC and the coalition parties, we're getting a very positive aspect, and when we're speaking to opposition parties, we're getting a total negative. You'd swear they'd be sitting in two different State of the Nation addresses this evening.
I think you have to be confident in your leader. You can't be part of the GNU and speak negatively, you know. I think you can have a few points of disagreement, but overall you have to be confident in what you're delivering towards the people. But also, as I said, as an opposition, you have to hold people accountable. You have to make sure that as the people, we're getting what has been promised to us. And I think over and over again, we've heard promises, we've heard words, and sometimes empty, sometimes fall short, and then sometimes they have been delivered and the parties have done well. So I think everybody's right to feel the way they feel.
I think you mentioned it very clearly, and I think we do have. I think we're having John Steenhuisen coming up soon. I see there's a very few parliamentarians left because I'm sure you noticed earlier on the buses were leaving.
Yeah.
But I think we're having we're going to see some other ministers come.
To get Mr. Herman Mashaba in also to hear what he thinks and where he stands. I think we're going to get him now.
Okay. I'm going to pass on to you. And yeah, we're waiting for Mr. Mashaba to join us here. Oh, I think, yeah, it's just, I think because the buses have been leaving, so we'll try and get more politicians to come and speak to us. But I think also, we can see the night is ending. A lot of politicians are going to be leaving the parliamentary precinct now. It's been a long day for a lot of people here. Some of the members of parliament have been sitting in the hall, a very crowded, cramped hall from 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time for them. Beyond today, they've been preparing for this moment for a very long time. So I think it's taken a lot of work and a lot of effort.
Am I chasing you
Yeah,
away?
you're talking to me. How are you doing,
I'm
Siti?
good, and you?
I'm well, thanks. How do you feel about tonight?
You know, I said this morning that tonight will be a judge of how much influence the GNU partners have in the GNU. I'm afraid that it appears they have very little influence because this is vintage Ramaphosa, forecasting into the future, telling us about funds that are going to be established, telling us that we need to grow the economy at 3% plus. Any matriculant could tell you that. The fact of the matter is 12 million unemployed South Africans can't make a living tonight. He told us about 28 million people living on grants. You can't live on 350 Rand. What he didn't say is perhaps the most profound. He didn't say anything about illegal immigration. He didn't say anything about illegal immigrants infiltrating our home affairs system, getting identity documentation, enjoying the benefits of social security grants, going to our hospitals, having their kids in our schools without any documentation. Nothing about that. He did say that local government is failing, and I give him some credit for that. He said that they need to appoint competent, capable people at local government. But why has it failed? Because of cadre deployment. It's their people that they put into local government that's allowed local government to collapse. And now local government is collapsing state-owned enterprises like Eskom and water boards because they don't pay. The money gets lost. And talking about losing money, how can you tell South Africa that the NPA and the SIU have recovered 10 billion Rand from people during the state capture era, but there'd been no prosecution of anyone? How do you do that? Does he think we are completely mad? If you and I go into a shop tonight and we're hungry and we steal a loaf of bread and we go out and the policeman catches us, they're going to take the bread away from you, they're going to charge you, they're going to put you in a police cell, and you're going to go to jail. So for him to tell us that they've recovered 10 billion Rand, but we haven't seen one person prosecuted, I'm sorry, he has no credibility.
So what would you like to see from the GNU going forward with what you've said and, you know, your stance against what was delivered tonight and just, I guess, the lack of actionable accountability? It's like, yes, we have the money back, but we don't have the people held accountable. So what would you like to see from the president and the GNU moving forward?
Well, I would have liked, you know, for example, and if we as Action SA were in the GNU, we're very clear about corruption. So I would have liked pressure on Ramaphosa to do something about the 2 cabinet ministers in his cabinet that have been implicated in very serious corruption. Similani was moved from justice to housing, no consequences. Chaveni, he said nothing about her, but she's got judgments against her of corruption and irregular awarding of tenders in the Limpopo High Court. Not a word. So I'm afraid if you can't set the example, and Cyril Ramaphosa presents his States of the Nation addresses as if he's the invigilator, the examiner of this government. He's not the examiner, he's the president. And we don't need a diplomat as a president. We need a president who's going to lead and lead by example and hold people's feet to the fire for accountability purposes.
So as Action SA, what's your plan to hold him accountable to make sure that he delivers on being, as you say, more of a president and not a diplomat?
We're an opposition party. Yeah. We're the biggest opposition party between the GNU bloc and the progressive stroke regressive caucus. So we will hold him to account in Parliament. We'll expose these issues. We'll talk to the media like I'm doing with you now. But you know what? The electorate have now learned that they have power. The electorate removed their majority, and the electorate are going to punish them again in 2026. So I'm going to leave this over to the electorate to punish Cyril Ramaphosa for this speech that he presented tonight. Because all the people that are hungry tonight, that haven't got trains to travel on, and there's no reliable transport system, and the ports don't work, they are the people that suffer the most, and they are the people that are going to hold him to account, not me.
So are you feeling confident about the next year? Not only with what has been delivered, but you're sitting in the GNU, so you have
We're not in the GNU. I'm with Action SA.
So are you not?
Got nothing to do with the GNU. But what I am confident about, we have an example of a city where we govern, and we govern well. We've got Nasipi Moya, who's the mayor of Tshwane. Everyone who lives in Joburg and Ekurhuleni and Tshwane has identified that the changes are happening there. So it shows you proper leadership, ethical leadership, doing the right thing for the right reason. You can turn cities around, even big broken cities you can turn around quickly. He doesn't have one city that he can use as an example of success.
So my final question, with what you've said about Tshwane now, there's been a crisis, there's been a water issue happening in Hammanskraal for the longest of time. What's your plan when addressing that? Because that's a very hard-hitting issue that affects lives on a daily basis when it comes to health, when it comes to just access to basic infrastructure on a municipality level.
Yeah, well,
what's the plan with Action SA and moving that forward?
Well, we're very proud that the people who were responsible for the Rooivalve water treatment plant, Edwin Sordi's company, is going to be prosecuted. Very proud of that, because the previous government said they did nothing about it. They actually appointed Edwin Sordi with all his blacklisting. The people of Hammanskraal have got fresh water. They're drinking fresh water now. The mayor was there 3 weeks ago drinking fresh water. They've got fresh water. People in Hammanskraal are not going to die of cholera again under our government.
We'll hold you to that.
Yeah, go and do that.
We'll
go and have a
hold you
look.
to that.
It's been there. And she was drinking the water herself.
That's good. We'll hold you to that. As long as it's
Don't
a
hold
long-term
me to
plan.
it. It's happened. It's there. You can go there. You can go to Hammanskraal and have a look.
That's good. Thank you then.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. As I think most of the delegates are gone, it looks like we're ending the night off.
Yeah, it looks like our night is ended. Thank you so much. I think it's been an absolute honor and a privilege presenting this evening with you. It's been, your insight and your views have been really, really helpful, and I think our viewers will appreciate it as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Mohammed. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Okay, so here we are. We're about to wrap up from a marathon broadcast here from Parliament. Our team has been here from the early hours of the morning setting up, and we're about to check out now for the evening from myself and the team. Assalamu alaikum and good evening.